All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining our session today. My name is Neeraj Kumar, and this is one of the sessions that we are doing on AzureTalk. So AzureTalk is a monthly session where we do more than, we have done more than 42 sessions up till now, and every alternate week we cover a large topic on Microsoft Azure. And in past, we have decided to have a dedicated session for Azure's Beginner Series, and that's when we started this. This is session number 7. So we have taken 6 sessions prior to that for Azure's Beginner Series, and you can refer all our sessions on our YouTube channel, which you can find the URL, which is youtube.com/c/AzureTalk. My name is Neeraj Kumar. I'm Cloud Architect. I'm also an MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer. I'm Azure Talk Community Group Moderator too. So we have our own Azure Talk Instant Messenger based community group with more than 3,000 members in it. And if you want to join, it's a Telegram based messenger group. You want to join the group, please feel free to do so. You can go to https t.me/AzureTalk, and you will be able to join our group. So in case you have any question on Azure, you can post those questions and you will get answers there. We have a lot of active community members helping out each and every one. So please do join if you're not already part of that group. We also have some other groups which is related to Azure. So we have Azure DevOps group. So you can if you are interested in learning DevOps, or if you have questions about DevOps, please feel free to join that group too. We also have O365 group, which is t.me/O365talk. For Azure DevOps, it's t.me/Azure DevOps Pro. Also, if you want to receive meeting invite or regular notification of our webinars, please join our website, which is you can go to register.cloudeasy.com, and you will become part of our database. And yes, we will type in those links in the chat as well, so that you can join. And today I'm joined by Lalit Rawat, who is an MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer. He was awarded Azure Master of the Month by Microsoft from India region. He was Azure Master of the Month for 2 consecutive months, and he is IT manager in one of the reputed company. And today he is going to go and present it on the technology, which is Azure Storage. Now, we have covered Azure Storage in past. This is, I think, the 3rd session and the final session. So this will be where we'll concluding the Azure Storage, and we will cover a lot of topic on Azure Storage. So we'll try to. There are a lot of things that we need to cover. So we'll try to, focus on the demo part more, but we'll cover theory a little bit, not in that depth, but and then we'll spend more time doing the demo, so that we have more hands-on experience. With that, I will give it to Lalit Rawat. But before that, I want to make sure that we maintain a good quality of audio recording. Hence, I have muted the audience. So that, but that's not a discouragement. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions in the chat window, and from there we'll be able to answer this question. Or if you need to speak up, you can type in the chat and we will unmute yourself. This is just a housekeeping activity, so that we maintain a good quality of our recording session. With that, I will hand it over to Lalit.
Hey Neeraj, thank you Neeraj for your introduction, and thank you so much for joining the session. And it's been a quite good series, and we have received a couple of good feedback on our YouTube channel, and helping our community to get it understand an Azure part. So it's been a name has been a beginner series, but we try to go into the depth for each and every services. So you can't say this is a beginner series, but in the meantime, it's a series where we will help you to understand the component of Azure, which is really important. As another component which is we are presenting here as an cloud Azure storage account, which is an important again. So let me just move quickly on the introduction of Azure storage account. So this is what we are going to presenting as an Azure tables is a copy, and how we can enable a firewall, and then storage account service endpoint, and then we'll have an Azure AD integration, which is in public preview, and VMMSI managed services identity. Through using that, how you are going to connect to your blob storage, and then the new feature which comes as a soft delete. Let's say you're having some important data and you deleted your blob, so how you're going to recover. So those are the things which is covering in this sessions, and it will really helpful if you're just going and referring those sessions to understand those terminology and the technology, and help you and your organization and as technically to get it understand. So let me just move to the slide first. So basically, this is the first slide which we have already covered most of the topics in this. So basically, storage account is nothing but is a cloud storage based solutions, which will as you can understand the on-premises how we are storing the data on the disk of servers. The similar way, Microsoft has designed their storage account in such a way that for each and every services they have created those storage account. Let's say if you have a virtual machines, there is a disk, the VSD disk, which is attached to your virtual machines, is going to store in your blob storage level and the block storage level. And the files here, how you're going to manage the file share services in your on-premises, similar way you will use it over here. Apart from that, when you are storing an unstructured data, let's say whatever the data it could be, either it could be your files, VSD, anything, which is again it will be coming and storing in your blob storage. And today we are more covering on the structured data and the queue services, as we have already covered those part, blob storage and the file server. So main focus for today is the structured data for tables, how you're going and integrating your tables, or you're utilizing your Azure storage tables, which will help you on that part, and which is comes in either if you have a Cosmos DB or no structured database, SQL databases, which will where you're going and storing those services. So let me just move to the next slide, and here is comes for your table storage account. So what is a table storage account, which we are referring. Let's say a user is getting and connecting here, okay, through a web applications, and either it will go on to the SQL pass Azure and get those queries in the tables and reply to your user saying that these are the data and employee data, or it will just go and directly and connect to your storage account, which is let's say if I have a Azure for you blog report or AzureTalk report, I just wanted to understand how many attendees and how many sessions we have done and who has done those sessions and how many blog states will be there and the views in there. So those are the entries which through PowerShell or you can say any other technology or API, I have just insert those things into my tables. And if I wanted to access those data over a browser, or let's say Neeraj has to access those data over a browser to do an analytics, so he can be able to see those combinations of those data. Apart from that, how the table storage data is getting stored. Okay, so that will be getting stored into the entities, which is called as your partition key, row key, and your emails and all. Okay, this is another part. Apart from that, the partition key, row key, and the email. So these are the another component which is there, and how the tables will help you in this part, because tables format is your schema less design. So if you have an schema, then there is a lot of structured things will come, and then you have to go through a lot of the things. But here you can if you're using in tables, you can easily adopt the data as per your application need. Even it is more faster than any other terminology in the technology and the cost effective solutions for you. So you can use those tables for your Cosmos DB or the non-SQL related databases which is there present in the Azure services. So Neeraj,
Yeah.
you want to add something in this part?
Sure. So I think we have covered that, in our advanced series session. So I posted the link for our YouTube channel. If you go there, you will be able to find our storage series there. The table storage is basically a NoSQL, which means it's not a relational database. It's a key value pair. So you have a key and you have a value, or you have a key and attribute. So based on that key, you will be able to retrieve those values. It's pretty fast as compared to your any traditional RDBMS, and this is schemaless. So which means you don't have to follow, you don't have to strictly enforce a schema, which typically you have to do when you're using an RDBMS relational database management system. You don't need to do that in table, and that's why it's a very fast, since there is no overhead of schema. And you can use it with a web app. So you can have, for example, a classic use case is you can store your user attributes, user preferences, about your website into a table storage. And you can store your traditional information about your products, product prices, the features in a SQL, Azure SQL, or which is like traditional RDBMS. So you can use both for an application. If you need faster access and key value pair is your use case, you can use your table storage for that. And document DB is also a kind of NoSQL, but this table storage is part of storage account. But if you need highly scalable and more robust performance, then consider using document DB, which is another NoSQL offering from Microsoft.
Right, Neeraj. So thanks for adding a couple of good points over here. Let me just move out to the next slide. And basically, this is the in this slide we are just talking about the table storage format, how your data is going to be stored. If you can see in the partition key, row key, and the timestamp. So basically, partition key is nothing but, let's say if you wanted to put some data or your department, saying that you have a marketing department. In this marketing department, you have created one row key called 001, and continuously there are a lot many partisans key is come, and the timestamps when you have create those entry or modify those entries, those will comes into the timestamp. So whenever querying those data, you will be able to understand who has modified, what has modified, at what time it is modified, which is really helpful. And these partition key and row key will always have a unique entries. Let's say I have created those entries, and there's a Don Hall which is 34 years age, and then as email ID would be don@contest.com. So basically these are the entries. And similarly, if I have a sales department where I have just created a department, on the marketing department, on the sales department I have created, and the can is working over there. So I will be able to understand, or we can add an employee count or the code. It depends on how we wanted to store the data, but your data would be stored as an whatever the format you wanted to, but it will be
Yeah, yeah, that's
aggregated partition key, row key, and the timestamps. Yes,
yeah.
Neeraj.
So if I may add, so your partition key is where you can consider this as the highest level. So under the partition, you will define the partition key. So for example, you can have one partition for marketing, one partition for sales, one partition for finance, one partition for HR if you're storing information about these companies. And then within the partition key, you have the row key, which will uniquely identify individual rows or information inside the table. So, and that row key can take any format. So for example, it could be row key number 01, 02, or you can also give up alphanumeric name if you really want to. And as timestamp says, timestamp is the time when this record got created, updated, or the latest operation that has happened. And then finally on the right side, what you see is first name, last name. Sorry, can you go back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the right side, what you see is the first name, last name, age, and email. This is your piece of information is stored in. So you remember we said key value pair. So your key is your row key and partition key is the combination. So partition key is the top level. Within one partition key, you will have multiple row keys. And your combination of partition key and row key will uniquely identify your value or your information. So whenever you have to retrieve any information from Azure Table Storage, you will pass on partition key and row key. If you give these two information, system will be uniquely able to identify and retrieve that information for you. So remember, you need to have partition key and a row key. Obviously, when you create a table, when you're trying to store it, it will ask you for those. Plus, information which you see on the right side, first two row is following schema, first name, last name, age, email, but you don't have to, because if you look at the third information, third column, there is schema changes. Now I have department name and employee count. And then, the fourth row again repeats it. So this is where it comes into the picture. The value that you're going to store doesn't have to conform to schema. It can take on any schema all. But as I said, this is very efficient, pretty fast, because it doesn't have the overhead of maintaining the relationship as in case of RDBMS. But you will not be able to build complex relational queries that you would do typically in case of RDBMS.
Right, Neeraj. So, we'll just move to the next slide, and now we are going to talk on Azure Queue Storage, how it will work, and in our last session there is questions. So what is the difference between a table storage and a queue storage? So basically, or the questions why one participants when attended this training saying that okay, can we convert or can we migrate our table storage and the queue storage? So that is not possible, which I have answered it. So as Neeraj very well and I we have defined that okay, the tables is something where known SQL databases and the format of data would be there, but in the meantime when queue comes for the messaging, and queue would be it's to be two types. One is in storage queue, and another one is where the developer they will understand a service was queue, right? So what is the use of key and why it is required into the storage account? Basically, queue is the mechanism which will help you to process your data very fast. So let's say if you have a user and let's say Amazon have a sale or they have a some $1 billion day or some sale over there. There are a lot of people are querying about the product. When they will directly get and connect from the web application. From there they'll connect to the storage accounts where the data will be there, or the SQL databases where the data will be there. Then the system would be choke, and then it will create another problem. So the web application will be designed in such a way that they will store a millions of messages in the queue, and which can be up to 64 KB and can be retained up to the 7 days. So whenever someone hits, okay, I need to buy a laptop for a Dell, HP or whatever it is, they'll hit to the web application and then storage account and the queue. It will be able to understand what kind of product you are looking, and those images and the qualities it will go, and the queue has defined in such a way. Queue is connecting to your SQL databases, Redis cache and all. So which will
yes,
much response. Yes.
Yeah, if I can add on, so queue is basically, it's a very simple concept. Queue is used to decouple your application. When I say decouple, your information that which you can process in offline way. So for example, you can have a web component which is receiving the orders, and then you can have a backend component which will process that order. Now in typical world you will have both the component, the order taking component and order processing component sitting on the same server, and then you run into problem. Whereas if you use the couple, order taking component can be running on your web server. It will put the information about the order in the queue, and the order processing information, which is the background, can read from the queue and then process it. That's why queue is used to decouple the application in that case, in that scenario, and you can independently scale. So for example, if you have, sometime you have more orders, so in that case order processing component need more power, you can independently scale, as opposed to if you have both the components together, you will have to scale both the components and you have to bring a downtime. So that's why we use Azure Q. Azure Q is a very good way to decouple your application from your different components of your application, so they can talk to each other without having to have that tight integration, and it's a decoupled, so it's not a coupled application.
Right, Neeraj.
All right, let's move on to the next slide, Lalit.
Sure. So, and another component which we are talking about an AZ copy and an AzureTalk and couple of other forums which myself and Neeraj are active. And this question has been always asked that okay, let's say if I have a terabytes of data, 2 terabytes or 4 terabytes of data, how I'm going to migrate those data to the storage account. So basically, if you normally start copying and pasting, it take much time rather than if there is some utility. So for those prospects to copy the data from your on-premises server to the Azure, Microsoft has designed an agent copy command line utility. So basically, how you are working as a PowerShell, the similar way Microsoft has designed an easy copy utility which will help you to migrate your data. Either it could be a VSD file or your files. So in the diagram, as you can see, that I have two locations, which is in central US and the south US. So where what I have to do is I have to download this utility, is easy copy utility from the Microsoft site and install it, and then I'll just go and connect to my storage account. So you can see from Central India, I have one server where I have run as easy copy command, which is showing in the easy copy / source http, which is .blob.co.windows. And then this is my storage account, and destination would be C, my folder, and then I'm providing the key and then the file. So this file I just wanted to move to my storage account, as it has important data and should be available on all the locations, or I have some utilizations on this storage account, or there will be some web applications which is running. So through easy copy, if you can see the diagram from Central US, if I run in one server and this utility, let's say if I'm running in this server, this VSD file, it's just getting in copying to my storage blob, or it could be into the file. So basically, this is
I think,
how.
I think the
Yes,
easy copy is a simple term. It's a command line utility. It's a and you want to upload any files into Azure storage, so you will use easy copy, and you have to install it. It's basically available for both Windows and Linux. And the way you use it, you have to use the easy copy command. You specify the source. That source could be blob storage, or that source could be your local folder also if you're trying to upload. But in case if you're trying to download, then your source will be blob storage and destination will be your folder, a local folder. And then finally you specify your key, storage access key, and based on that it will get the access and it will download those files. So it's just a command line utility which you can use. There are various other ways to interact with Azure storage. So anyway, you can use it, but this is mainly used for scripting the upload and download.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the next slide, Lalit.
So now we are talking about Azure Firewall. It's been Azure Firewall is in like 1 month or 2 months back. It's in preview. And there's been a couple of questions which has been asked into the couple of forum, including in Microsoft and our AzureTalk forum, saying that how do we protect our storage account being in a public storage account. So basically earlier when Microsoft has released those storage account concept, everything is publicly, but we have to control either using a SAS key, or it could be accessing those storage account using a primary key or the key type of authentication, or in the web applications, or if we are writing some code, and that part we have to copy those key and define the parameters of storage account and all. So now what would happen? Microsoft has releases those Azure storage firewall and integrated with the storage account. So now you can control the public traffic and whatever the IPs, either it could be the internally or a public IP you wanted to allow. You can define those IPs and integrated your VNet in a storage account. So
Yeah, so let me jump in there. So you in the storage firewall you specify the public IP. So any public IP that you specify, only traffic emanating from those public IP will be able to access your storage account. In case of private IP, as I said, usually you don't specify private IP in the firewall. However, if you're using VNet, you can specify that please accept the traffic from VNet, and obviously in the VNet you will have private IP. But generally, the storage firewall you will have to specify the public IP of the endpoint, which would be accessing these storage accounts. And we will see those in the demo also, where you can configure the storage firewall. You create a storage account, and we restrict the traffic only from our corporate enterprise network IP range, and that way we will be able to secure the traffic so that none of other attackers can really access or try to access or brute force our storage account. So you can configure your storage firewall for that.
Right, right, Neeraj. And the same has been, designed in the network. Like if you have a data center enterprise network, and that goes from the firewall, and directly it is getting connecting to the storage account. And this is the subnet which is going and defining. So directly, if you have a, let's say if you have a cloud, and the VM would be there, then you are associating this VNet, and then it will go and connect to your storage account. So that's how you'll make your environment secure. Let's move to the next slide. And another one is a storage account, storage service endpoint. So what it will help, basically it will help, earlier what happened, like whenever we need to connect to a storage account through, let's say if I have make a NSG rule in such a way that I don't want to allow in public IP, but still have a challenge to get and connecting to a storage account. Some data would be there or backup is running that is getting failed. So this services will help you to through your endpoint directly. You can get and connecting to the backend virtual network and get it access your storage account. So basically an endpoint can be enabled your through VNet, and that should be enabled in your storage account as well, and it will provide an additional security layer on top of your storage account and restrict the communication within your organization, and whatever the things you wanted to allow, it will only allow, or those particular VMs or those particular storage account you wanted to allow, it will allow. And it will help you to outbound traffic which is there, that will filter those outbound traffic. So
just to add on to
yes,
just add on to Lalit, what Lalit is saying is the storage service endpoint is a private backbone. The traffic, usually when you have storage account, your traffic travels over internet, over a public internet. But due to security reasons, and especially in the financial sectors, they were not comfortable with traffic. Though traffic is encrypted, it's an HTTPS. The storage service endpoint helps you to with that, because now the traffic, if you enable storage service endpoint, the traffic doesn't go over internet. Rather than it goes via Microsoft Azure backbone, so it will remain private. It doesn't have to go over internet. And since you don't need, you're not accessing data over internet, you can block down internet on your VM, which requires storage access. So earlier, if you had to do that, you have to enable internet connection or outbound internet access on the server, which requires access to the storage account. Now you don't have to do that. You can lock down internet access, yet you will have access to your storage account if you enable service endpoint for storage.
Right, Neeraj. So there is another part which is Azure AD integration, which is in preview, and how we're going to access your blobs in the queue, which is for supporting your Azure AD integration authentication. So basically, it has been accessed through your RWAC role, and if you can see here, if I have a VM which is connected over here, and it has an storage account, so what I can do is from this storage account, if I have a blob and the queue, I directly go to the IAM and RBAC policies and can apply those features over here. So it will be, on the blob container where my data is there. Here I can go and restrict, okay, for this particular VM, I wanted to allow this container. For this VM, or I wanted to allow this container. And similarly, if you can see in the down, you have those permissions which is there, and the storage blobs, services blobs, and also you have a read, write, and the delete permissions. That's how you're going to restrict.
Yeah.
So what are the preview features limitation it has? It will
So Lalit,
as of now, as a simple preview, it will
Lalit,
support your
if I may,
blobs and the key features
La-
only.
Lalit, if
Yes,
I may
Neeraj.
interrupt. So yeah, so like before we get into the preview features limitations, you know, this RBAC, allowing RBAC was there for long. It's not new thing, rule-based access control, right? So Azure portal, we control access through RBAC. However, what is new here is using this RBAC role, now you can control access to data. Who can do what? Earlier, the RBAC role was there even for storage account, but that was for who can create the storage account, who can assign permission to it, but not the end user's data access. Now, we are using the same RBAC to for data access. So Microsoft has come up with 4 different roles just to allow access to the actual data inside the storage. One is, and right now it's only supported for blob and queue. Only blob and queue it's supported. So they have come up with 4 different roles: storage blob data reader, which will give you read access using that identity. So any identity I can add, and now that user can log on and you can use it logged on credential to access or read my blob. So you have blob reader, contributor, and then you have queue, data reader, and contributor. So contributor is one who can make changes, delete data inside it, and all those data. Now earlier, if you had to do that, you would have remembered we use storage access key or shared access signature SAS. These are the 2 methods that were available earlier for you to access the blob storage. Now, with this Azure AD integrated authentication, you can assign permission to end user using their Azure AD identity, and you can grant them either the reader permission or contributor permission, depending on what kind of rights you want to give. And those users can log in and access your data, as opposed to using shared access signature or storage access key.
Right, right, Neeraj.
And I think today it is only supported for blob and queue. That's why I think we did talk about that. And it's only available for standard storage account today. Premium is not supported. The support is coming soon. And again, this is in public preview. So Microsoft releases any feature which is in public preview. You have to be cognizant of the fact that you should not implement in production. But if you're doing so, do it at your own risk. But if this is something which is really a good feature, it was there in demand for very long. Now you can assign permission to your blob storage using Azure AD identities.
Right, Neeraj.
Let's move on to the next slide. And I think this slide talks about managed service identity. It is again related to a previous slide, which is Active Directory integrated authentication. With the managed services identity, what Microsoft has done in past, just think about it as it is a service account in on-prem, right? So in on-prem, you will create a service account or managed group service account if you ever worked on Windows 2012 R2 or Windows 2016. So they had a managed service group account. Similarly, here also, you can now represent your Azure services. Now, what are those Azure services? Like you have VMs, you have Azure Function Apps, you have VM skill sets. I think these are the services which are supported today. And you can represent them as an identity in Azure. So what Azure will do is, if you're going to go ahead and enable MSI, and we will see that in demo, managed services identity, we can enable that MSI on a VM level. So when you enable that, what it does in the background, it create an equivalent service account or equivalent kind of user account, you can say, a representative of user account of that particular service in Azure AD. Now you can use, once you enable the MSI, now you can use and assign permission the way you will assign permission to any regular users. So you can give data reader permission, blob reader or a blob contributor, queue reader or queue contributor permission to this service account or service principal that gets created in Azure. So it's more or less same as in Azure AD integrated authentication. However, the difference is in Azure AD integrated authentication, you will grant permission to an end user, whereas here again you will be granting permission to an account or but in this case it will be not an end user, it will be not a human end user, but it will be a computer account or representative of these services as this account. So that's what it is today. And why would you use MSI, right? Why would you use managed services identity? The reason is, if you had if you have an application which is trying to access your storage, how would you do it? You would have to embed your credentials. You have to hard code it into config file, or you have to store it in Azure Key Vault, right? Now, if you really want to avoid that, you can use MSI. Now, MSI works in a way that the machine can request a token to access the resources without having to input any username and password, because machine itself represents the account. And Azure AD would work in that way. And there are a lot of components which goes in the background to make it possible, but it's very seamless experience to end user. You don't have to do anything once you enable MSI and grant permission to respective resources. If you have any code which is running on the VM where you have enabled managed services identity, you can request access token, and using that without specifying password, you will be able to access the resources. So same way you can use it for the Azure storage as well, and we'll see that in the demo. So let's move on to the next slide, Lalit.
So,
all right, I think this is I think the last slide, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll spend a couple of minutes. So what Microsoft has done, they have introduced a new feature called soft delete. So it's like, consider this as a recycle bin. So in desktop world, if you delete anything, it goes into recycle bin, right? And from there you can recover. So similarly, this feature was not there earlier, and there were a lot of issues where customers deleted by mistake. And then if you have to recover, there is no way to recover it, and you have to call Microsoft, and if you're lucky, if it is within a certain period of time, they may work with you. And it was a very, very painful process to recover the data. Accidental deletion, it was very difficult. So in order to counter that, in order to alleviate that problem, remediate that problem, Microsoft has come up with soft delete, a recycle bin for Azure Blob. So if you enable soft delete, you have to enable that. Then your Azure Blob storage will not get permanently deleted, rather than it will be placed in a temporary storage, or recycle bin, you would say. And then from there, you will be able to retrieve it. When you configure your recycle bin or soft delete, you have option of retention, how long you want to retain it. that retention can be set between 1 day to 365 days. After that retention period is over, it will get deleted. But keep in mind, when you enable the soft delete, you will be billed for the data, because eventually that data that you have deleted is still being retained by Microsoft. So let's say you have 10 GB of data, and out of that 2 GB got deleted, and you have soft delete enabled, you will be charged for 10 plus 2, 12 GB of data storage. So keep that in mind. But again, this is like protection against accidental deletion. And in couple of my colleagues, they have ran into issues where they had a huge chunk of data, 1 TB of data, like exchange log files were there, and somebody deleted it, and this happened twice with them, and they had nightmare to recover that. They called Microsoft, and it took them a lot of time to really, and usually Microsoft don't entertain those kind of recovery requests, but this was one of the big customers, so they had to go and work with Microsoft. So now Microsoft has come up with this, and you can enable your soft delete. Again, we'll see that in the demo, how to enable the soft delete. And once you delete anything, it will go in the recycle bin, and from there, after your retention period is over, it will get permanently deleted. But until the retention period, you will be charged for that storage as well. But once retention period is over, it will be permanently deleted, and then you won't be charged anything for that. All right. I think this is the last slide, Lalit.
Yes, it's a demo time.
All right. So before we get into demo, what are we going to do is, I think we are running a little slightly late, but what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open the floor for questions. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute the audience. We'll take, let's give 5 minutes, and then after that, we'll get into the demo. So we will not be able to take many questions, but we'll try to take as much as possible. All right, I've unmuted the audience. If anybody has any question, please, you'll have to unmute. Go ahead.
This is Dheeraj. Can I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
So for Azure copy, I saw that it is HTTPS, but let's say if I have a terabytes of data and I'm trying to move from on-prem to the cloud as a SQL server data, is that something Azure copy can help over there, or what is the best option for that?
So easy copy will help you move blob storage, or or if you want to move it to the any of the blob formats. So for example, if you can export your SQL data in a DAC or backpack, right? These are the two formats.
Exactly. Yeah. I have the backpack of terabytes of data.
Yes, it can. It can help you to move that data into your Azure, and you will have to. In fact, Easy Copy also support multi-part upload, where you can parallelly upload the data file into Azure. And it will depend how much time it would take on your internet bandwidth. Again, remember, Easy Copy copies data over in internet in encrypted format. So depending on what's your data pipeline, that much time it would take.
So the security wise, like TSL, HTTPS is there. Is there something we can add more security on that?
Well, you can encrypt your DAC before you upload it. So another layer of encryption.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I think there are no questions as such. And if you still have any question, feel free to type in the chat and we'll try to answer those questions.
Yeah, this is Tanvir here.
Hey, Tanvir.
Yeah. So now, does it not required to share the primary keys to the end user or someone who requested for storage?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yes, that was one of the challenge that we had earlier, right? So if you have to allow access to your blob, you have to share your primary key or shared access signature. Now with Azure AD integrated authentication, you don't have to do that. You can just directly assign that user permission to your blob storage, and you can give, if you want to give them write permission, you can give them blob contributor. If you want to give them just read permission, you can give them the blob reader permission. You don't have to share your storage key anymore.
Right.
Okay. Another question that as we are using easy copy,
Mhm.
so does we have to? I mean, is there a way that we can create a schedule or to move the files? For example, we have a couple of files, and
Mhm.
daily we want to upload those files to our storage.
Yes, you can do
Uh,
that. You can use. Sorry, you had anything more to add? Sorry.
No, yeah. So, is there a script or a scheduled task we can assign so that by default, and what are the requirements? What are the consideration we have to use uh, easy copy
Sure. So you can use Windows
bandwidth?
schedule. You can use sorry, yeah. You can use Windows schedule task to schedule your script, and you can use AZ copy and you can script it there. If you're using Linux, you can use Cron job. So with that, you can schedule your task to upload your data on schedule basis. Both the options you have. Or if you want to write your PowerShell script in PowerShell, you can directly call easy copy and it can schedule. So all the three options. As far as bandwidth is concerned, I answered that question earlier also. So that will depend on how much is your bandwidth and the pipe. And based on that, it will take that much of time. So let's say if you have terabyte of data, make sure that you have enough bandwidth to support that data upload into Azure. So like, if you have 100 meg pipe, that should be sufficient, but it will take at least, 12 to 15 hours to upload that data. So keep those things in mind. All right, let's
Yeah,
move. Let's move into the
yeah,
demo.
Neeraj. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Yeah, so again, I am repeating the question, though you have answered in the chat window, Neeraj, but still I have a little bit confusion if you can clear that one. That why we have required a multiple subscription? What is the use in? If you can give me example,
So
that will make easy for me.
sure, Tanvir, what I would suggest is, you can post those questions in our AzureTalk Telegram group. Though it's not related to this topic, but you can post those questions Telegram group and we will share the
Okay,
article. All
we'll
right.
do that.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Neeraj.
Okay. All right, let's get into the demo. I think, we are running late. So, Lalit,
Right. So basically, I have already created a storage account. If you wanted to, really create another storage account, I'll quickly, show the steps. How you're going to create one storage account. Click on create and click on storage. Click on storage accounts, and here you just give the name of storage account as your talk session, and all should be a smaller letter, and then you have to select that kind of storage account. This is three kind of storage account: v1, v2, and a blob storage account. Then you have to select this our applications, which is LRS, GRS, and RAGRS, which we have covered more on this. And then parameter. Once this is done, you will click on create and you will be able to create a storage account. And I have already created a storage account. I'm not going to create another storage account. Let's say if I have a one storage account which is called as an AzureTalk 1, and in this storage account, if I wanted to have a tables, if I want to create a table, I'll just click on the table part. I'll say new table. I can say AzureTalk sessions, and I'll click OK. Once I'll click OK, there is one URL which is generated. This is first name would be my name, which is the table name, and that another would be subsequently of those core.windows.net and the table dot. So it will shows this is a table, right? So similarly we can see over here in the storage account explorer, which we have created. So let's say our things. Okay, so the tables I'm not able to do here. Let me just open in storage explorer. I'll show you how we're going to do the So I'm just, this is storage Azure Storage Explorer, where there's a limitation in the Azure subscription that you cannot, view or see the tables in your Azure storage account, but similarly you can see those partitions key and the table entries over in Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, which you can quickly download from your Azure's websites and all, right. Similarly, let me just create a queue till that time Storage Explorer is coming. I'll just create a queue here. I'll click on queue and I'll just store message. Just attendees. So I have connected with my storage account, and AzureTalk 1 is my storage account. So quickly I tell you how you're going to connect to Storage Explorer. Once you have installed this Storage Explorer, click on user sign in and you can click on add account. Once you click on add account, either you can add an account if you are an administrator or a contributor. You can directly click and sign in on one Windows.
Lalit, you'll have to unmute yourself. I have muted the audience. There was disturbance, so please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes. So now you're able to hear me?
Yes? Yeah. Yes.
So just let me know like from where I start.
Yeah. So you were talking
table creation or how it is?
No. So from the Storage Explorer,
right?
Storage Explorer.
So how are you going to connecting to your Storage Explorer? You can always download this Storage Explorer from the Microsoft side. So just click on the manage accounts on the user icon. Once you click on this part, click on add account. Once you click, either how you log in to your portal.azure.com and site of Azure, similarly you click on sign in, you will be able to access, or you have an URI or a connection string which you can easily find out in storage account, and then you can provide that. Either you have a SaaS URI and you can define those blob endpoints, tables and all. So I will don't take much time, or you can just have an storage account name.
I've also posted the link of our advanced level demo which we did 7 months back, so you can refer those videos. It has all the demo for queue manipulation and table manipulation and storage account and all those details. So let's quickly show the advanced features, Lalit, if that's possible, about managed services identities, and the Azure AD integrated authentication.
Right. I'm just, let me just start with the firewall. So basically how you're going to enable your firewall. As of now, I have, enabled this firewall for my all the network, and I just wanted to get it restricted. I will, click here, schedule my address space range and allow to only my trusted services sites. Or only if I remove this option, only read access to my storage account from any network, or if I wanted to allow. Let's say the first option would be there, and I'm just going and integrating my.
So yeah, this is where I think we should spend a little bit of time. So if you look at it, you can specify public when it says add IP ranges to address range, which is there, yeah. And if you click, that is where you will specify your public IP range, and it's on premise, right? So if you have on premise, you have corporate IP range, you have to specify those IP ranges there. But if you need to specify private IP, you can only specify private IP of your virtual network, not of your on-prem. It doesn't work like that. So if you hire in virtual network, you will add those into the virtual network. If you see in the middle, Lalit, if you can show me that, yeah, that's where Lalit has. You can add your existing virtual network. So you can control. You can say, hey, guys, I mean, this is very sensitive data, and I only want it to be accessed from just a single virtual network. You can do so, or you can say that, okay, I want to allow access only from my corporate. When user is in office, then only they can access it. That's when you will use this storage firewall, and you can specify those IP ranges there.
Right, Neeraj. So, and one more question, like if you can see this warning that I didn't enable a service endpoint which I have to enable fast in my virtual network. That is the reason these features cannot be enabled. So I'm just going and enabling here this feature, and then I'll go to my virtual network and get it enabled there. So so we can in one topic we can cover both the demos. So once this is getting enabled here, I'll just open another tab and get it enabled those features again.
Yeah, while Lalit is trying to do that, so remember we talked about storage service endpoint. So this storage service endpoint and allowing firewall traffic, or allowing traffic on the storage firewall from virtual network both are linked. So you can do that on firewall configuration for VNet only when you have configured your storage service endpoint, and storage service endpoint is enabled at a VNet level. So this is, you will go into the VNet property, and then you'll click on add. And today Microsoft has multiple service endpoint. So one is for storage is already added. If you can click on add, Lalit, you will see a whole lot of on the top. You have it supports Key Vault now, and Service Bus. Cosmos DB is in public preview, if I'm not mistaken, and and MySQL is also in public preview. So, but these are the service endpoint and it will keep evolving. So today you can use service endpoint. So when you enable service endpoint for any of these services, your traffic will not go over internet. Rather than it will utilize the backbone of Microsoft to take the traffic to these respective services. So this is where you will enable the service endpoint, and I think Lalit has already enabled it for Microsoft Storage. That's what I see.
Right. I have already enabled for these things, and let's say I have to
maybe you can enable it for Azure. Yeah, Azure.
Yeah. I'll just click on create it on this. So I'm just getting in enabling for my SQL. So from the backbone it will get and connect to my SQL server or past SQL itself. So that's how you can make secure your environment and get it enabled those endpoints, right?
Yeah, once the storage service endpoint is enabled, then you go back to your storage account and go to the storage firewall, and in the firewall you can say that only accept the traffic from my VNet 1. That's it.
Right.
Not accept from any other VNets. And then obviously you can also add the public IP of your corporate network. If you want to accept traffic from a corporate network. So
right.
a lot of cases,
I have already created in 2 VMs, and let me just assign a public IP for one of my VM here, and I can add those things. So my endpoints has been added, and let me just click on the storage account, and then AzureTalk 1, and I'll go to the firewall networks and the features here, and I'll select virtual networks, which has been it's been already added. And if I wanted to allow a public IP, I'll just click on allow my public IP, and I'll click on the save button. And once I click on the save, so from this particular VM over publicly, I will be able to access this blob storage account. And how you're going to find out a primary key and all from here. So let's say if I wanted to get those blob account and all has to be access So as of now, it is saying that you don't have access because you have a firewall on the virtual network settings which might be blocking your storage account. So this is good sign because your storage account is now don't have a public IP and it is not getting and connecting to those
Yeah, see
services.
so what Lalit has done is Lalit has configured the storage firewall.
Right.
Storage firewall with setting that it will only accept the traffic from the public IP of his VM, one VM, and then another VNet. Now, right now he's trying to access this from his current laptop, which is not part of the VM at all, right? So that's the reason he's getting access to it, and he cannot access this blob storage. He can manipulate the permissions, but not the actual data because we have put in those firewall restriction. So if you can go back to firewall once again, Lalit,
Yes.
and show this. Yeah, so if you look at here, what my firewall is saying that I will only accept the traffic from AzureTalk VNet or the public IP of the VM. Now, right now, Lalit is trying to access it from his laptop, which is not included here. If you can go to Google and type "who am I" and get your IP and add that, so then he will be able to access it. Who am I? Or what is my IP? Sorry.
Yeah.
What is my IP? Yep.
I was a little bit get confused.
Yeah. So
Okay.
now if
Yeah.
you copy this IP, so this is his public IP of his laptop, obviously through
Let
his ISP.
us.
And if he puts it here
Right.
and save it, now if he tries to access it, he should be able to. So
Yes, it's true.
now it works, right? Earlier it didn't work because storage firewall was restricting. So there are different ways to secure storage. This was a network layer. So we have said at network layer we don't accept the traffic, only accept the traffic from trusted IP range. Then second, once you cross that, then you have access level or RBAC level of security. So now we'll talk about securing it using the access control. So if you can go in access and IAM on the middle pane, Lalit.
Right. Let me just enable those security features from VM fast, and
Sure.
then we'll enable it from here. Let's say how if I wanted to allow a particular storage account to my VM, what I have to enable the things is once I'll create my VM, I'll click in the configuration, and from the configuration I will enable and manage identity services, which I have already enabled because it takes almost 5 to 10 minutes to get it enabled, which I have enabled. So it is registered with my Active Directory services. Now, as Neeraj said, I'm just going onto the storage account and I click on the blob, and the blob I have to choose an storage account container. And the storage account container I have an IAM option where I can define those policies.
So
So
yeah,
let me just
before you go there, let's spend a little bit time on the managed services identity. And I'm sorry, we are 3 minutes over. We'll take 5 more minutes and then we'll wrap up. So if you can go back to the VM for me quickly, a little bit. So under the VM, every VM, right? So VM is one of the services. You can also do it for scale set and function app. Similarly, you will have that option. So here, if you look at the VM, and this works for Windows as well as Linux machine, irrespective, it's a VM configuration. So when you turn on the managed services identity, what exactly is happening in the background is, one, it is going to create a service principal, a name in Azure AD, or an equivalent of user account representation of this machine in Azure AD. And it will also in the background install a plugin on the VM so that it can take on or switch the context of authentication to this managed services identity. These are two things which are happening in the background. So once you turn it on here, and if you go into Azure AD, if you can go for me in Azure Active Directory, Lalit.
sure.
You will see that there is an object created with the name of that VM. If you click on users, And if you can, sorry, just go back. It should be into the application.
Applications, right?
Yeah. So just a bit. Go back. Retract.
Right.
Yeah, app registration. Click on app registration. Sure, your user account is it should be in the users. Usually I see in the users, but or maybe, yeah.
Might be it is not reflecting as quickly because it might take some time because from the backend it has to registered and shown over here.
It's
That
strange.
might be the reason it is not reflecting.
It's really strange. But usually, what happens is it will create a service account in your Azure AD, and from there you will assign the permission. So now, if you come back to the storage account, somehow it's not reflecting here.
Right.
And go into the storage and click on IAM. And this is where you will add your user. So either you can add a user account, or you can use a managed services identity, depending on what. So let's go ahead and click on add and select roles. Now this is where you will see the roles that you have. You can see storage blob data contributor, right, and storage blob data reader. These are the preview roles, and storage queue data contributor and queue data reader. These are the 4 roles which are available. So let's go ahead and give a blob contributor role, storage blob data contributor role. And remember, this is for actually manipulating the data. And here you can specify the account that you have. So now this person, Lalit, right? So if this person is trying to access it, and there is a PowerShell commandlet using which you can access this storage account using your currently logged on credentials, the way you will do in on-prem or Windows world, you can do that. So I mean, for that you have to install the Azure Storage Preview PowerShell module, but once you do that, you will be able to access the storage account without having to specify your storage access key or shared signature key, right? So if you can click on access key for me in the settings on the middle pane, Lalit.
Yes.
Yeah, so usually this is what Tanvir had the question. You will send this key 1, a primary key and secondary key, or if you click on shared access signature, so you will generate a shared access signature for this, and then you'll share with your customer. Now with this feature of Azure AD integration, integrated authentication, you don't have to do it anymore. And you can just assign the permission to the user, and then the user can use its credential to access these data. Same way, you can also add the MSI. So if you can go back to access IAM again and add one of your VM account. You should, if you have configured your MSI properly, it should come.
Yeah, I have configured it. So basically, let me just click on the container part, and then then it will show this part of VM. So I'll click on the IAM, and here I'm just going and adding my VMs to this particular storage account. I'll click on add over here, and I'll select the storage account role as a key operator role, and then
no, don't say storage account key operator, sir. Hold on. Can you just data contributor role?
you can see that, yeah, you can see I have a virtual machines, right?
Yeah, so just change the role to storage data contributor, storage blob data contributor. No, storage blob.
Oh, sorry.
Preview role. We wanted to give preview role. Yeah. Sorry. Yep.
Awesome.
And then you can specify the virtual machine that you wish to.
And then I have in this AzureTalk group, and here you can see that I have a 1 VM.
Yeah.
And I'll click save. I
So
think
now,
now we can, once the settings would be saved, we might have to look down the AD, might the service principal name would be created for this.
yeah, it may. But the point is, once you add your computer, once you specify the service identity, managed services identity, MSI of your VM, that's one step of your access configuration. You're done. But now it's up to the application developer how to consume that. So there are .NET codes using which you can request a token, access token. So that you have to write in a .NET, maybe .NET or C# .NET, depending on what code you are using, and call that code. So it will give you an access token, and there is a script which can you can refer that. And once you have that access token, just present that and access your storage account. So for example, you can have a web app or a web server running on your VM, and that VM needs to store any data or access any data from your blob storage. Earlier you had to embed your shared access signature storage key. You don't have to do it anymore. You just turn on your MSI and assign permission managed services identity of that VM, permission of contributor reader role, data contributor reader role, whichever, and it will work seamlessly for you. Just get an access token and that would work for you, right? So it's another step into the direction of securing cloud and building the trust of customer. So Microsoft is certainly enhancing and improving its product to make it more secure and viable to host the workloads in Azure.
Right, Neeraj. Thanks for very nice explanation. And now we can the last demo, which is you can say as a soft delete, how you're going and enabling the services of your soft delete. So if you can see that soft delete enables you to recover your data. I'm just getting an enable, and here by default the retentions would be 7 days, but you can make it 1 day, okay, up to 365 days.
Yeah, I think it's more than it's maximum 365. If you try to put more than that, it will error out.
Yeah, it will automatically change to 365 days.
Yep, correct. So depending on what's your how long you want to retain in recycle bin, right? This is a recycle bin feature for your blob storage. So you can turn that on, and this will help you from accidental deletion. And remember, this is only for deletion. If you do an overwrite, it doesn't help at all.
Right.
So for overwrite, you have to go with the versioning. So versioning is another feature where you can turn on the versioning, where it will maintain the multiple copies of the same file. But this is a protection. This feature, soft delete, is a protection against accidental deletion of the object.
Right, yes. The new features which is there into the life cycle management provide. So basically, it is just for your blob automation based. It is tiring and the deletion within your organization. You can configure it. So basically, this is life cycle management features which is in the preview, and which we have to enable, which we have to register through PowerShell, and then only these features would be enabled. So how your storage account life cycles would be managed, it will be managed like if you deleted some files, or you have how you're going to treating your files and all. These features will help you in this part. So as of now, we are not going and talking about these features. Let's comes into the more on those, more on this part, and then we'll discuss into the separate sessions which is there. So as you can see that even I'm not aware of these features at all, but we can see that every day Microsoft adding a new features which is helping services and helping and contributing more on this part on the security and the life cycle management and all. Right, Neeraj?
Yeah, that's truly that's correct, right? We all are learning, and Azure is evolving, and as Azure evolves, our knowledge should also evolve. So we all are constantly learning. Nobody's perfect. We all are learning together, and that's why we have this community Azure Talk, where we come together and we share our knowledge and we talk, we share our challenges that we are facing, and sometime this community has contributed into enhancement of product. Some of the documentation we asked Microsoft to fix it, and they gleefully acknowledged and they fixed those documentations. So it's a huge community, 3,000 plus members, and very active community. So please do join us there, and it's instant messenger based. Anybody can access from mobile web browser, or you can also have a desktop application. It's a Telegram app. So please do subscribe to do join our Azure Talk Telegram group, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we will upload our recording to this session. I think we are 15 minutes over our time. I'm really sorry for that. We want to excuse this session and make it at 1 hour, but it was too much to take in, and we didn't want to skip anything. So and I really want to thank everybody for holding on for another 15 minutes. So I hope you find it useful, and we will upload this recording, and we will also share the articles that we have consulted while preparing this presentation and doing this demo, so that you will have access to those. And please do watch out. You can just subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will upload the sessions in case any of your friends, colleague, or anybody who missed these sessions today, they can refer that. Plus, we also have our all past recording there. More than 45 sessions recording there. We have beginner series, we have networking series, we have IAM series, we have DevOps series, we have O365 series, and everything. In fact, there were some guest speakers too. So those series are also there. So please do go and check out that on youtube.com/c/Azure Talk. And we'll see you again next time, and hopefully with new topic on Azure. And till that time, please do join our Azure Talk community group, and we will keep answering questions there. With that, I will conclude the session, and I want to take this time to thank everybody who joined today, and it was really wonderful session, and we'll keep bringing such sessions to you and to larger audience. So please feel free to spread word about Azure Talk and Azure Talk community, so that we become stronger together and we learn together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neeraj, and the audience.